Have you heard of ARCHAEOASTRONOMY? I am the Honorable Priest Isaac, and I am certified in the field of ARCHAEOASTRONOMY. Do you want to learn ARCHAEOASTRONOMY? Well, book your ticket today and join me in the Caribbean in the island of Antigua for 9 days and nights, 7 of which will be in the classroom studying and in the field researching on Green Castle Hill, Mount Anu, the Stonehenge of the Caribbean. This is a studycation. You will visit the beach, experience the Rastafari camps, yoga, vegan food, and much more. For more information, visit priestisaacinstitute.com or email us at priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com. Prosperity is a herbal remedy that has been naturally designed to nourish the prostate gland. Prosperity uses a combination of leaves, roots, and barks to create a tincture designed to nourish your prostate gland. It also will assist in prostate-related issues such as erectile dysfunction, swollen prostates, and problems related to the passage of urine. Call or WhatsApp 728-8289, 728-8289 and get your bottle today. Prosperity. Yes, Royal Family, blessed love once again. Of course, we are very thankful for your presence with us, giving thanks. Praise to the life giver and the keeper of life. Of course, family, we are very grateful for your presence. Our praises to Madani, which is the savior of the world. We glorify Emperor Haile Selassie I, the power and might of the Holy Trinity, Negus and Agas. We give thanks, for the universal frequency of love that keeps all of us, and the spirit, the quickening spirit in its quickening meditation. So give thanks again, family. Negus I Selassie Jah. Rastafari. With joy, I welcome you to a special edition of the Tiger's Nest. Give thanks for the full Rasta Roundtable family. But for sure, this evening on the Tiger's Nest, we want to take a moment to basically go straight into a very important subject, as it relates to our Ethiopian history. As I mentioned on the Rasta Roundtable, for some time we've been delving into the Ethiopian history, the validity of the Ethiopian history, a lot of things, let's just put it this way, even some questions, some people don't have the answers. There's some questions I didn't even know the questions existed, you understand, but on Rasta Roundtable, the scholars come together, things come up, things are unearthed, we would hear about a lot of the Ethiopian history that we may read about. Some have the outlook that it's not as genuine as we may think. We would have gone into the history of the church, the history of the Bible, so many different things. But in the midst of that, a discussion came up, especially when we were talking about the Arian doctrine as it relates to Emperor Johannes IV. Now, of course, a lot of us, we tend to have a little romanticism within us for our African history. Everybody is a hero, everybody was a mighty king and they're all holy people, etc., etc. But within the reasoning that we have, the good brother Seifa Sellassie, who is in the nest with I this evening, and even Rabbi Adonis, which I must say, I was hoping I could have reached out to him to be with us this evening, but I fell short of just getting in contact with him. But they were speaking about King Johannes IV. For those of you who may not know, King Johannes IV is one of the, you could say, more recent emperors within the Ethiopian historical context. When I say more recent, I'm talking maybe within 100, 150 years, 200 years going back. In fact, Johannes the Fourth, I think he was also one of the Kasai. I know he was born in 1837. He was born on the 11th of July, just giving you a kind of timeline. He was emperor from 1871, and he passed in 1889. It has to be, I think it was somewhere in March. And of course, we understood that the great Johannes was also an individual who would have, one speak of the titles of the Lion of Judah, and I would have come across some information that would have put him in that line as well. But whatever the case is, as I said, we have King Ras Seifa Sellassie with us. And we want to go into the real Johannes IV. We don't want to be romantic about it now. We want to understand where he really stands in the Ethiopian context of history. Because the good brother Ras Seifa Sellassie and Ras Adonis were quite critical of Johannes when we had the discussion, when we were talking about the Arian doctrine and Arius himself. So I definitely invited Ras Seifa Sellassie to sit with us in the Tiger's Nest tonight for us to, take some time to look at, again, Emperor Johannes IV from a historical perspective, from a realistic perspective, without any bias, without trying to color it up and trying to make it look as pretty as we want it to be. We just want the facts and we just want the truth. So, Brother Ras Seifa Sellassie, good to see the eye again. Blessed love.
Yes, family Rastafari, greetings.
And give thanks for the Tim Cap that just passed.
Yes, I.
Christ.
Yes, I give thanks for Tim Cap. It was this year, Tim Cap was the 20th of January this year, the equivalent, because the day is actually 11 Term, the month of Ethiopian 11 Term, the month Term, the 11th. But you see, it's a leap year, so normally it's the 19th, but the date doesn't change in the Ethiopian date, but the Babylon date or the Roman reckoning or the Western Hemisphere reckoning has to change its dates from the 19th to the 20th, because that all begins from the finding of the beginning of the Ethiopian New Year in a leap year in the month of Pagome, that it either has 5 days or 6 days. So the 6th day, if it's 5 or 6 days, whatever day it may be, whether it's the 5th day or the 6th day, that is the first day of Meskarem. So that doesn't change. So the first day of Meskarem is in a leap year. It is the 12th of September. So then the next celebration after the 12th of September is Maskell, finding of the true cross. Well, then that occurs 16 days after. So it's on the 17th day. The 17th day of Meskarem is in a leap year. The 28th day is the 28th day of September. But if the first of Meskarem begins on the 11th, that means 16 days later, on the 27th of September, which is also the 17th of Meskarem, because the Ethiopian date doesn't change, it then goes forward. So that is where it changes. So the Ethiopia, the Western date, or the Roman reckoning of time, not the Ethiopian, the Roman reckoning of time changes from the 27th to the 28th. Like now we're in the Tim Cap, it was the 19th and the 20th. But I'm glad that I bring this forward, Russ, because it's a very important thing.
True.
Because when it comes to now, January the 7th, we would have said, because in Ethiopia, that January the 7th, in a non-leap year, the 29th of Tassas, the month Tassas, is the 29th of Tassas, is normally the 7th of January. But in a leap year, the 29th of Tassas would be the 8th of January. So the Ethiopian church has turned back the Ethiopian clock to be in line with the Orthodox churches of the Western Hemisphere, or the people of the Northern Hemisphere. So where we celebrated January the 7th, in fact, in Lalibela, they keep there is Emmanuel, there is the Emmanuel Gena. Emmanuel Gena, that is the 27th.
Okay.
But also sorry, not on the 27th. Oh, it's the 7th.
The 7th,
but
yes.
there is Bale. There is Bale Gena, which they keep in Lalibela. Bale Gena keeps the 8th day. The 8th. The 8th of January is the Christmas in Gena, in northern, in Lalibela. So it's a very big controversy. And it's come up this year amongst I and I, Rastafari brethren and sisters this year, that they say, hang on a minute, something is wrong. Even like His Majesty's coronation this year, instead of being, because His Majesty's coronation is 23 Hidar 23. Well, this year, His Majesty's coronation would be the 3rd of, in a leap year, it would be the 3rd of November, not the 2nd of November. You see, but the Babylon date changes, but not the Ethiopian date, because the Ethiopian date is the mother of all calendars. It should not change. So if they changed it at Christmas, why did they change it? Because they're keeping, this is why they're making all the white Jesus and all of that in the Church of Ethiopia. This is where we get to overstand this thing here. And I as Rastafari, we have to talk it, because it's the truth. So the Ethiopian calendar is not, it is the mother of all calendars. It is not changed from ancient Kemet. It's the same 12 times 30 days of a year, plus the 5 to 6 days of Pagamet, whether it be, whether it comes. That is the ancient Kemetian calendar. So if the Babylon Roman calendar has come now, and now the Ethiopian has changed its Christmas day from the 29th of Tassas to the 28th of Tassas, it cannot be correct. They're giving you another story, but they're tricking the people. I'm telling you that, my brethren and sisters, family Rastafari people. And we may say, well, as Rastafari, who are we to come and change things? Well, His Majesty came to put the law straight. And these things, I mean, not to say we have to not keep it, but we have to make it known that there is the proper date, because the sun, the movement of the sun, S-U-N, is synonymous with the sun, the S-O-N. So that means the movement of the sun is what you're measuring when you give when this extra day is built in the Ethiopian year. Is the movement of the sun. So when it comes to the end of its path on December the 21st and the 22nd, it stands still for 3 days, and then it moves back on the 25th. This is the idea of Christmas. This is the reason why there is a thing of Christmas. It's the movement of the sun. So then if you're going to now move the movement of the sun, I would say that it's an impossibility. And His Majesty said that in a speech on His Majesty said on a speech, let me see if I can find it here, on a speech about personal development, he said that we cannot change time. However much scientists they can do this, they can do that. They cannot change time, not even for a second. They cannot turn back time for even 1 second. So if His Majesty is saying that scientists cannot move back the time for 1 second, why then is the church moving back the celebration of the sun a whole day, 24 hours? This is something to be questioned. We don't want to cause trouble with the church. We love the church, but explain it. Because the point is, when they want, it's not that we can't keep the 7th and the 8th like they do in the Emmanuel Gena and Bale Gena, the 2 different Genas. It's the same as it is the same as the Sabbath. In Ethiopia, you can keep the Sabbath on both days, Saturday and Sunday. It's called the Ewastatiwos. And it came from the northern monastery, from the 14th century, a monk named Ewastatiwos. And he then brought this doctrine into the church. And then Zara Jacob. Zara Jacob then adopted the Ewastatiwos as a nationalist movement against the Roman Church in its entirety. Not to say he wanted to overthrow the church, but he brought the Sabbath, the Saturday Sabbath, back into practice because it's the African root. He brought that. That's King Zari Yaakov from 1426 to 1462. You know, the Ethiopian calendar. So this is the fact that this is what happened. So we'll have to stop there, Bridget, because we need to talk about the other.
Before you go, just for clarity,
yeah.
you know, so Emmanuel Lidet and Lidet, you said again.
Yeah, it's Gena, Emmanuel Gena.
Emmanuel
or Lidet is the birth. Emmanuel birth. Yeah.
And the next, and that one, and the next name was what? I'm not too familiar.
Bale, B-A-L-E, Bale.
Okay. And who is that?
Well, that is Christ, but it's also Lalibella's Ertstrom. You see? And they keep it in, and I know I put forward before some where Lalibela was talking about himself like when he was here before. And I've been looking for that, my brethren, you know, but I want you guys to share that. Yeah, man, send me that information there, brethren.
When we done, easy.
It's very important. It's very important, you know.
That's heavy.
Very important.
So the 7th and the 8th, Emmanuel Gena, Valley Gena. All right.
Yes.
So Emmanuel is Jesus Christus.
Yes.
And Valley is Lalibela.
Well, it's a Jesus Christus too, isn't it? Because it's Jesus Christus, they've moved the date forward, right? Yohannes, they moved the Ethiopian date backward to be in line with the Orthodox churches of the northern and the western hemisphere.
Okay.
You know, like the Armenian church, the European Orthodox churches.
So what was the height? What's the height with some of them celebrating it on the 6th? That since there's a moving back, like it going back with you and back and back and back.
Well, I don't know about it being practiced on the 6th because what it is, you see. No, what happens is like when they get
not in Ethiopia, no. Some Orthodox churches, not in Ethiopia. Some Orthodox churches are positive would rise their Orthodox Christmas on the 6th.
Yeah, but it's the midnight. You see them do the celebration on the midnight. So it's on the 6th, but it goes from 9 o'clock in the evening, the prayers, until 3 o'clock in the morning on the 7th.
True.
You see? So even though it begins on the 6th, it's like they do in Babylon where they do the midnight mass and all of them things. It's the same thing. But don't forget the Ethiopian calendar starts on the eve, the night before. So it will be on the 6th and the 7th. Because it's straddling both days between the night and the morning. You see?
Positive. Some heavy.
Yes, sir.
Give thanks to the strength, but as you say, wow, some heavy stuff there. I know we got to talk about that a little deeper. Because to be honest, even the little time we carve out tonight, that looked like a deeper reasoning. That looked like a reasoning for the round table. But King Johannes IV, my good brother.
Russ, 1 second, brethren. Just give me 1 minute. I have to give me 1 minute. Just take something for a minute, please. I have to move.
Of course, you know, that's okay, man. That's perfect. I can always share a word with the family, you know, and because this is what I'm here for. So, family, I'm here and I'm going to share a word with you. And I have the perfect word to share with you. Yeah. Family. I mean that, family. Our youths, our young ones, our children, we need them, redeem them, and clean them. You see them, or else the enemy will come and scheme them. Family. I mean that, family. Education for the nation that's full of salvation, biology, astronomy, and African theology, geography. Family. I love that, family. We coming. Whatever the age or the stage, that youth will be engaged with tutorials, activities, and videos from the studios of the Priest Isaac Institute of Holistic Knowledge. Family.
The International Homeschool program is designed and recommended for all ages. The psychological state of our children is very important, especially in the environment that most of us live in. The International Homeschool program provides online classes, activities, and videos that are fun for the youth and edifies them of their African heritage as well as the higher sciences. To enroll your family today, visit www.priestisaacinstitute.com, go to the main website, and search for Youth Corner. Or you can email priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com for a course sample. Give thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm ready.
Yes, my lord. So give thanks for that that intermission there. That was perfect timing there. And
Yes, sir. Give thanks.
exactly.
Yes, sir.
Yes, man. Johannes IV. Yes, man.
Yes.
Let's start.
Yes, Russ. Well, it's a very important subject, dealing with the history of Ethiopia, because as ones who have been able to investigate Ethiopian history and the foundation of the Solomonic kingdom or the Davidic kingdom after the 1855 and Emperor Tewodros II. You know, that is where the centralization of the Ethiopian empire became to consolidate again, because it had been through 120 odd years of division over the Sos Lidet and Hulik Lidet doctrine. That means the 2 births or 3 birth doctrine, which all emanates again from the Arius controversy of 300 AD, 300 and odd AD, around them periods there, 200, the late third into the early 4th centuries AD. So this problem, which began then, went into the Ethiopian kingship up until the what they call the Zamana Mesafent. The Zamana Mesafent is the age of princes, or the age of judges, is when the different princes were fighting for power. So Tewodros II, he then took power and consolidated the Ethiopian kingdoms, and became the King of Kings. Although he was a lesser royal, I would say. You know, he was a Solomonic royal, because there's 2 Solomonic lines in Ethiopia.
Tewodros is the lesser royal.
He's a lesser.
Yeah. Tewodros the second.
Yes, he was a lesser royal, but nevertheless he was a royal, you know. And he was a warrior, and he was God's, you know, he was that they would have said Xiabi, bless him and send him on his way, you know, to conquer. But he actually conquered the southern Solomonites, which is Haile Selassie's forebears, successors, who was Haile Malakot, who was Emperor Menelik II's father, Haile Malakot. So he was then defeated by Tewodros, and then Tewodros took his son, who was Menelik II, who was the heir. He took him when he was 11 years old and took him captive into Magdala. So that is where he remained. And then just before, in 1868, when Tewodros was attacked by the British, when he was attacked by the British now, he was helped. The British were helped by a Ras Kassa. Well, Ras Kassa is who became Yohannes IV. But Ras Kassa, you see what he done. He guided the British army, and with their Indian troops and all them, couldn't come into Ethiopia without a guide, you know, to come into the mountains and all of that across the rugged terrain. And plus, they needed to have food and food and supplies and all of those things. So it was Ras Kassa who supplied the British Army with their food, supplies, and everything. And his reward was to receive the arms when they left, when they looted Magdala.
So wait, sorry. So what are you trying to tell me? So Ras Kassa, who eventually became Johannes the
fourth,
he didn't just show them, hey, go that way, turn left, go up the hill, down the valley. He said, have some breakfast, have some lunch. This is a place to stay. Make sure you keep warm.
Yeah, make my people feed you. Let my people feed you. Let my people bring their markets goods to you so they get fed. You know, so his people trade with them and keep them, you know, in supplies and everything. His people did that, you know. So it wasn't just a simple thing that he just helped them. He actually assisted them and gave them sustenance, food and water and everything, because they couldn't come in a foreign country and not be able to do that.
I have some questions on morality, but I'm gonna make you continue and leave it for a little later.
Yeah, so that is where. So as I now, we have the Magdala campaign going on. Rastafari Bridge. You remember the book Liberator, Ras Seymour MacLean. You know, he was a great liberator over the Magdala incident. You know, and he was. And all the stolen manuscripts and the gold and everything that they took. Well, he was a great warrior, a Rastafari warrior. He's passed on now. Jah guide and bless him in his after wherever he's.
I've heard about him, you know.
Yeah, man.
I don't think but I always hear about that scene. Yes.
Yeah, Ras Seymour MacLean. You know, they call him the Book Liberator. The Book Liberator. He went and took some of the precious books out of the British Library and they put him in prison for it. You know. So he was a martyr for the cause, you know. So he's a big thing, and now and I still have the cause going on, you know, to get the treasures from Magdala returned to Ethiopia.
So before you go there, because no, let's just give that a little life. So because I know I hear the elders, you know, some like Elder Franca and so that would have passed on. Through certain intellectual discussions, I would have heard his name come up. Give us a little understanding, just quickly, who he is again, just so before we move on.
He was a Jamaican Ras.
Ras Seymour.
Ras Seymour, but he was a very influential Ras here in England. You know, back in the 80s and 90s, coming through like into the Rasta House over there in Kennington and all of that. He was a powerful Ras, and he used to teach Amharic, and he was, you know, he's a very high-level graduate. And he, like I say, he went into the British Library and took some of the serious books with them from Magdala. He went and took them, and they call him the Book Liberator. And then he left a trail for them, and they wanted to know how he get them books out of the British Library, like he's like a magician. So that, you know, the Babylon couldn't understand how he could have managed it. They thought that he had help in it, and he's him one do it. Just through the powers of the Mosiah, just guide him and inspire him to do them works there. So anyway, he went to prison as the Book Liberator. You know, they put him in prison. You know, but he was a very he wrote to the Queen. I mean, I've got quite a lot of documents that he had. You know, he sent them to her a long time ago. You know, and I never thrown anything away. I've got enough things that he's done. You know, and in France they had a big thing written right up on him in France in French in the newspaper. The Book Liberator. You know, like very high-level bridges. You know, and the big works he did for Rastafari, you know, and to get the truth out there. But they still going on like they don't want to give anything. Even some priests, you know, I think in 2019, some priests went to the Westminster Cathedral to try and pray with the tablet, with them teeth from there, and they have it under the throne seat, you know, and they run the Ethiopian priests out of it. They didn't run them, but they didn't allow them to access the tablet. You know, because they've got the tablet, one of the tablets from the Magdala. They have there right there in the Westminster Cathedral, and I believe they has something to do with the crowning of the Queen and all of them things. You know, so yeah. So that is the story. That is the story of the liberation. So I are still.
And before I don't want to just, I know, okay, no, it's not heights. I don't know if you will be getting to this, but since you mentioned that, I know Her Majesty would have retrieved a few things from Magdala.
Yes, well, he received the crown.
The crown.
Received the crown, and he was very indignant. He was very indignant that they gave him. He wrote it in his autobiography, His Majesty.
True,
and he was indignant that he was offended that they gave him the Tewodros crown. You know, they returned the crown to him. They returned His Majesty. When His Majesty was here, I believe, they returned the crown. Or I don't know if she took it to Ethiopia and gave it to His Majesty, or it was here. I'm not sure, but His Majesty was vexed. You know, he said it. He said it in his autobiography how he was. You know, it was disturbing for him to be offered the crown of Tewodros. You know,
did he receive something when he was Prince Regent?
Well, I'm not
from
sure
the king. I think it was a staff mayor or something. Yeah.
Oh no, well the staff was what they had there in Gloucestershire. Okay. There's a cathedral in Gloucestershire, and they brought the scepter. The scepter from yes, they did have the scepter. And they then bring the scepter at the coronation. They send the scepter to His Majesty. That is to do with the scepter, which was at Gloucestershire in England, here up there in central England somewhere.
Well, you know, you have the autobiography 1 or 2 here, you know, but sometimes you have to read a book all 4 or 5 times. When the king said he was disgusted, refresh me a bit.
He didn't actually say disgusted, but His Majesty would put it in his diplomatic and very eloquent way. Yes. You know, where he said, we say disgusted, but he would have said like he was disturbed or, you know, something nicely, but for His Majesty to say it, it's a serious thing what he's saying, in his diplomacy, his beautiful diplomacy, which His Majesty was a master of, So.
All right, let me go ahead and take my draw and make it continue.
Yes, sir. So this is.
I was just highlighting photos for those who are watching. So I try to keep them in tune with what you're saying too.
Yes, sir.
Where those Yohannes.
So this is the person of Johannes IV. Now, when you hear His Majesty speak, you would never hear His Majesty say these things, because His Majesty, like you wouldn't wash your dirty laundry in public. So His Majesty wouldn't never say anything against Johannes IV, because don't forget, in the Constitution, His Majesty talks about his lineage through sight without interruption. His line is from the Queen of Sheba down through Haile Selassie without interruption. His Majesty, it says that in His Majesty's Constitution. So that means, even though this is the truth about Johannes, he is still the predecessor to Menelik II. He's still one of His Majesty's unbroken successors through the line of Haile Selassie, because don't forget Haile Selassie was 18 when did he I think he something like 1816 he was in power in time there, 1816 1820 up there in them times there of the Ethiopian calendar, going up into the 40s. He went on the throne about 2 or 3 times. They depose him and he'd go back on the throne, and this was the era of princes. So this is where Tewodros brought that conflict to an end. He tried to bring it to an end. But when he brought it to an end, still, even him, Tewodros, was pushing the Haile Selassie doctrine, the 2-birth doctrine of Christ. Now, we can't go into that. When we brought that up initially, I said to the I said, this is a subject you brought up here. This is so deep, because it is so deep and it is so technical. It is philosophically technical to actually try to describe these things. You know, Adonis came in and saved us when I'd said that to you before, and he came in and gave a good definition from the Worldly Quib, and the Holy Lidet from Johannes IV. Do you remember he brought up not Johannes IV, from Yesak, Archbishop Yesak? You know, he read it out of the book and he gave us the definition, everything out of the Holy Lidet and the Sos Lidet and the controversy and how long it had been going on, etc. But what I and I can do, the only thing I and I can do to really get an understanding of it with a handle on this time, you know, let alone it's got this 1600-year history of a conflict of these two different doctrines. We know that His Majesty in his constitution, Article 3 of his constitution, he said that, let me just read it, Article 2. Oh, it's not there. Article 3 of his, you know, Article 3, he says that His Majesty, the imperial dignity, is coming through the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon, coming down through to Haile Selassie without interruption. Well, that Haile Selassie is His Majesty's point of reference. Now, what we do know about Haile Selassie is he was an adherent of the Sos Lidet doctrine, the three-birth doctrine. And when he was Haile Selassie, His Majesty's great-grandfather, who His Majesty claims in his written constitution, his descent, his Solomonic lineage comes into Haile Selassie through him. Haile Selassie was an adherent of the Sos Lidet doctrine, the three-birth doctrine. Now, when he was in power, he banned from his capital of the Ethiopia, then when he was king, he didn't allow the people of the Holy Lidet doctrine into his territory. It was a Sos Lidet doctrine that they were teaching. And the Sos Lidet doctrine is the three births of Christ, which is to do with the baptism. The baptism in the human, as well as this being with Christ, it's the baptism within the human king.
Yes.
Who then is the catalyst for the nation. The nation worships the king. And it is through that king now who has got the third birth. Now, Haile Selassie called the Hulit Lidet doctrine, the two-birth doctrine, the doctrine of the knife, because it cut off one of the births, which is the human birth in the flesh. Because now they're taking it away with this Jesus Christus. They said he was in the flesh, but now he's gone to heaven and all of these things. They ain't in the flesh no more. It's just a spiritual something that go on. He's not the you know, it's lost its human form. It's lost its African root, to be truthful. So that is what we're dealing with. We're talking about the Sos Lidet doctrine. But so when His Majesty, so now when Haile Selassie's Sos Lidet doctrine son, who is Haile Malakot, who is Emperor Menelik's father, was then conquered by the Hulit Lidet doctrine people from the north, who was Tewodros II. That was suppressed, and then they pushed the Hulit Lidet doctrine into the fabric of Ethiopian society, because also there'd been Catholic, you know, from 1500s and on, there'd been Catholic infiltration of Ethiopia, Catholic, you know, proper Catholic, we'd been sent by the Pope and all of them, the Portuguese, they were in Ethiopia. So from the 1500s, you know, probably about 1527, 1528, you know, they were first there for 1520, then they were expelled in 1527, and then the left-handed armored Grand come in and then conquered Ethiopia with Muslim, and then up until 19, and then about 1542 or something like that, he was killed. But he was killed with the help of the Jesuits, who the Portuguese sent their army, you know, sent some soldiers to help the Ethiopians. So they were getting their footing. They helped them to defeat the armed grand. So this is where the Catholics got their foothold in Ethiopia. So then they were in there for about 100 and odd years before they were thrown out fully. You know, because they were in there, even though there wasn't a lot of them in there, there was advisors in there amongst the kings. Sustenius, you know, King Sustenius. Sustenius was a Catholic convert, and he then murdered many of his own people. You know, maybe 8 to 9,000 people, like, to convert them to Catholicism. And then his son Fasilidas in 1609 took over the throne and stopped him doing that and turned it back. So this is the foundation of all of these controversy that come up into the 1700s, up into the 1800s. This is the history behind it. This is the foundation behind it. So when they tell us in Ethiopian church, don't forget, I'm a man who come through the church. And I went in there to get the learning and as much as I could from the church. They were saying, oh, the Ethiopian church is never changed. When we want to say, I said, well, what about Haile Selassie? Oh, we can't deal with Haile Selassie because you're dealing with change. The Ethiopian church hasn't changed from the time of Christ and the apostolic succession. You know, that the apostles, like from James, the brother of Christ, was the first bishop of Jerusalem, and then, you know, this is the apostolic succession. So they say they haven't changed from then. Well, if they're going to tell us that, what about all this history there, what we're talking about? About, you know, what we know is only like recent history relative to that. You know, 1500 from the Catholic invasion into there, and the Islamic invasion into the country and all of that. And so you can't tell us now that, hold on a minute, yeah, let's just forget that. That's not true. Or not saying not true, but the Ethiopian church is without change, because the only thing I can tell Aiden this as a person who studied this thing to the best of my ability, is that the only thing that has not changed, what they're talking about, the Ethiopian churches without change, the Ethiopian churches without change, the Orthodox churches without change, that's not true. The only thing that is without change is the calendar. Right. The only thing that remains constant in Ethiopia is the calendar. And once you start changing the Ethiopian calendar from its ancient Cometian root, then we start seeing how they're letting the white Jesus and all of that come into the place. You know, and when they first brought the Ethiopian church to England, I know some of the people there who was the first people in the 70s, the Rastafari, who sent His Majesty sent the church to Rastafari. Never sent it to anybody else. He sent it to I. And there's brothers in there, I can tell you, man. Yes, I'll even call his name, Bongo Dashi. Yes, sir. You can. He's a Naya Bingi man there. He's an Orthodox Naya Bingi man. Bongo Dashi would tell you there was a priest who His Majesty sent. His name was Thaddeus, Abba Thaddeus, and he said, "Don't use the name Jesus Christ. We're talking about Jesus Christus. Yes, sir. It's two different entities."
Yeah, no, use Jesus Christ strong.
And now you see, don't forget, in Ethiopia, they're going to say Jesus Christus because it's their language. Yes. But when they're out here now evangelizing the Ethiopian church, they're telling us about Jesus Christ. Yeah. Well, I've got even I have one sister and she calls it the J word. The J word, she wouldn't even say the word. You know?
Yeah, the J word. I like that. I think I'm going to use that one. The J word.
Yeah, man.
G word. You know? Right. But, you know, I wanted to, I hope I don't take it off track, but this is important. So when I was saying earlier about the morality part of it, okay, Raskasa, Yohannes, you were saying that Emperor, and correct me if I'm not fully correct here, Emperor Tewodros now, also Solomonic lineage, but his lineage is not as strong. In fact, some history books speak of him as if he don't have no lineage, like he just come and.
No, that's right, because he married. I think he married, you know, he was a powerful brother.
Okay.
obviously.
Right, but what I'm saying now.
But he married royalty.
Okay. Now, wouldn't Johannes be seen as someone who wanted to bring back on the throne the authentic lineage of the Solomonic dynasty? So he was always at loggerheads with Emperor Tewodros II.
Well, I can't answer that one. I don't know that, brethren. I don't know that. I don't know if
because as you're saying, you know, this is the lineage of Haile Selassie.
Yes, but Haile Selassie is not, you see, Tewodros and Yohannes, neither of those are of the line. They're of the northern, even though they're linked, you know, all of them have familial links, you know, like through marriage and all of those things.
Who is keeping up the doctrine then? Well, maybe that's where I'm going on. Which isn't it Johannes?
Well, Johannes was keeping up the Holocaust doctrine, the two-birth doctrine. And when he became emperor, because don't forget how he became emperor is because he had far superior arms than Menelik.
Yes.
Menelik couldn't fight him, he knew it. But he just waited his time. But he actually went with his army before. This is, you know, this is written history.
Yes.
Menelik went before Yohannes with his millstone around his neck, you know, the Ethiopian punishment or humility of wearing the millstone around his neck. He went before Johannes with a millstone around his neck and with his army, you know, and his army all in their fine regalia marching behind him, and he had to walk before him with his head down and with a stone around his neck and go and give obeisance to Johannes IV. Well, when that happened then, and then Johannes crowned him. You know, actually Johannes crowned Menelik as Negus. You know, as the King of Kings. He was the King of Kings, and he crowned Menelik as the Negus of Shoah. That was the first official crowning. Because they would, you know, that they were actually they would take their kingships, but like without this official crowning, like through the King of Kings. So that is the first event of official crowning of a King of Kings crowning another king, and he crowned Menelik II, Johannes IV. So he was this powerful king, but he won by reason of arms, you know, but Menelik just waited his time for him, you know. He waited his time to take him out, or he didn't take him out. I mean, the Muslim Mahdis up in the Sudanese border killed him. You know, he was at war with them. Johannes IV was killed. Yeah, he was killed, and then, you know, they beheaded him. You know, they beheaded him. They after he was dead, they went and cut his head off and ran along the border with his head on a stake. You know, Johannes IV. Yeah, man, that's what happened to him, you know. But the thing is, it's very funny because the story of him, he married his brother's wife, you know. Like the story of John the Baptist, how they said, you know, the story of John the Baptist, how he condemned the man for dealing with his brother's wife. Well, Johannes done the same thing, and he was beheaded. I wonder if there's some sort of analogy there, you know.
That's for those who don't know, Yohannes means John.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's a very interesting kind of thing happened there, you know.
Yeah. But that's real Tiger's Nest material there.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I tell you.
So the thing is, when we're looking at so what I wanted to say, because when we're going to now start challenging anything to do with Ethiopian history, we have to be very mindful, you know, very respectful of His Majesty's lineage and legacy. Sure. Because we can't come in and start saying, "Oh, we're Rasta and we're going to change this, we're going to change it." No. We have to look at it through the spectre of the Ethiopian Church, which is Majesty maintain, you know, he took an oath to maintain the faith of the Ethiopian church. You know, so we can't forget that. So when we're going to come and give anything, we have to bear in mind. I mean, even when I come and talk to the eye, and I knew I was going to talk to the eye about this, I pray first to His Majesty and pray that I don't say anything which would be offensive to His Majesty's legacy, even though we're trying to deal with the truth. You know, and who am I? Who am I to say anything about the Ethiopian church? You know, this is what I would say. You know, who am I to say anything? But nevertheless, like I said to you about the dates with the calendar and all of that, and the two different Christmas, the Emmanuel and the Barlet, you know, Gena. I mean, it's a fact. So when we're talking this fact, we must be able to stand up and say to the Ethiopian hierarchy of the church, well, listen, well, what about this? Where does this come into? How does it mean? Because His Majesty set the thing straight. His Majesty didn't come, you know, even this thing of the Hulit-Lidet and Sos-Lidet doctrine. If His Majesty comes from the lineage of Haile Selassie, he's telling you that he's coming from the Sos-Lidet doctrine. That's a fact. He's not coming from no Hulit-Lidet doctrine, even though when Menelik came to the throne, he did not change the edicts, because my man Yohannes made an edict that the whole of the country would keep up with the Hulit-Lidet doctrine, the two-birth doctrine, and he called a conference of priests from all over Ethiopia, from Shoa, and it was up in the north of Ethiopia. He had this conference, and he called it, you know, like a council like the Council of Nicaea. They had an Ethiopian council, and they called him up there. So I think it was even his brother was one of these people. They said, anybody who doesn't agree with the Hulit-Lidet doctrine and you support the Sos-Lidet doctrine, turn up, tell us about it. And some little priest didn't go up there and say, yes, I support the Sos-Lidet doctrine. I ain't in this Hulit-Lidet doctrine. And they took him outside and cut out his tongue, you know. So that put the end to that. And that was after that Menelik went and gave obeisance to him. Yoba, like this, where Menelik gave obeisance to him after that event, you know, and then it was the doctrine of the empire to go with this Hulit-Lidet doctrine, the two-birth doctrine. So when Menelik came to the throne now, he didn't want to reignite the controversy. So he said to anybody, you can be Sos-Lidet, Hulit-Lidet, whatever you want to do. You want to be Muslim, whatever.
Yes.
We're giving you. There's an actual word for it. I can't remember the Ethiopian word, but His Majesty did the same in his reign. You know, when His Majesty reconfirmed the same doctrine or the same policy which was inaugurated by Menelik, but they didn't change it for the sake of the peace of the country. But by action, they changed it, because they were the Sos-Lidet doctrine. They come from the Sos-Lidet doctrine dynasty. They come from Haile Selassie. They come from Haile Selassie, and then Haile Malakot, and then, you know, so that is Menelik's father, and then there's the Menelik's, and then Haile Selassie's daughter. Then is Ras Makonen's mother. So His Majesty doesn't even come through the male line, which is another controversial, something we have to actually, something I have to deal with.
Especially amongst the scholarly pastors.
Yes, because His Majesty has come through the matriarchal line.
But they jump. Let me not say that. Go through.
So that is another thing to have to broach. You know, because then we see the actual mother, we see the mother goddess coming back into power there with His Majesty. You see?
Yes.
The matriarchal mood, you know, the matriarchal African roots again. You see, because the matriarchal is African, and that is what the whole of the Bible is against. Even from the thing of Adam and Eve and all of that story there, is the woman power that they're trying to come against.
Mhm.
You know, and then we've got the God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. You know, everything is male,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the female is there.
Mhm.
The female obviously is there because she is wisdom who was there before the creation of the world. She was with him before it began. So it's not that they're actually denying it, but it's actually they're not defining the female element.
You know,
Not
I
to say they're
want to
doing
come in there still, you don't know, even in the interest of time and everything, I want us to talk about the prophecy of the second Theodore, because, if I'm not mistaken, Emperor Theodore took the name fulfilling a prophecy of a king that should come. And I would have heard Russell speak about, well, from their point of view, that Haile Selassie is the real fulfillment, maybe not by name, of that second Theodore was to come. I don't know if you know of that prophecy. Plus,
No, I don't.
also, no?
No, I don't know.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, I'm
Well,
sure.
you could enlighten man.
Well, no, that just what I say is how I would have heard that prophecy. I know I would have read about like a return, a great king that should come, whether it's to unite or whether it's to reestablish. And
Yes.
it's supposed to be like a second Theodore. So the
Okay.
history say now that Theodore II, what was his name prior to that again? Please, if you,
Theodore.
yeah.
I can't say. I
Okay,
don't
well,
know.
whatever it was, okay, the brotherhood changed the name and
Yeah.
right. So apparently he would have adopted that name as a warrior then. Because as you say, he's a warrior king. He
Yes.
ain't playing around, he conquering, and he according to the history, he adopted that name to fulfill that prophecy. But
Okay.
again, I was saying amongst the races, because a lot of what I know is the elders I learned from. One would look at it, and I could understand as a premature move by the ancestor, because the real Theodore, who was to come to fulfill that prophecy, came in the person of Haile Selassie the first. So
Yes.
but we can just go back to the lab with that and come again and bring a more proper presentation to the family. It was just something that came in my mind from a further time. But I know this now. Again, you only hear this debate amongst the scholars. A lot of what I've been bringing up tonight, is what I sit, especially as a young ras, and hear the elders discuss. Emperor Theodore II shot himself. Now, it's not everybody go for that. Now, I've read His Majesty mention that, I can't remember the context, but I think he said something like, if something, we would not go the way of our ancestor Theodore, who committed suicide. Something of the sort. I'm seriously paraphrasing, and I don't want to get the words wrong. But the point is, because most ones will say, well, listen, I get your point, but I hear the king say that this is what happened, so I'm sticking with the king. And you said something earlier about the king's diplomacy, where the king always really come to muddy up the waters, Whatever mission the king on, the king does be like a straight arrow to hit the direction. But maybe he know how long he gonna be around to do this and whatever. He just on a specific mission. That idea of Theodore II not really killing himself, but being murdered by the British. Have you ever come across that discussion?
Yes.
What's your
Definitely,
outlook on it?
Bridget.
So obviously
Definitely.
propaganda would have come into
Well,
it.
the only way that I know that, Bridget, is listening to Ras Seymour again.
Okay.
Ras Seymour McLean.
Yes.
Seymour McLean comes with that story because what happened, he comes with a much bigger story, than what the official story. Because he came with a story that even though that the when they had the British ambassadors held hostage, he came with a thing that when someone went up there to free those hostages or to negotiate their freedom, he then got to realize there was the whole heap of the gold of the empire there. So they came to T when him send the story back now to England, say there is gold, come, come, come. That's why they send the army.
Yeah.
That's Ras McLean's story, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he was devoted his life to that research, my brethren. Seymour McLean.
So Victoria didn't send them just
and
to
he
free the
said,
hostages.
and they went there for the gold. They went, there was I don't know if it was a German or somebody or a Turkish. I think it was a Turkish somebody who went there to negotiate with them. And he then somehow he was an agent for the British or something, and him sent back, said, there is gold, come, there's gold. And they went there for the gold, and supposedly they killed Tewodros, according to Ras McLean.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, Bridget, but that's the story. As I mentioned that there, I know that story, for sure.
Yes,
Ras McLean come with that story. Yeah.
So
whether he killed him.
Yes, pardon me. So at the end of the day now, how are we supposed to really look at Emperor Yohannes? Although I don't know all the annals, I assume he would have done some great deeds, as you said, even crowning Menelik as the northern king to the southern king and all of that kind of good vibration there. How are we supposed to look at him now, history, as a turncoat, as a betrayer?
Well, Russ, I would say so. I mean, they couldn't have completed the Magdala campaign without him.
Okay.
And then the British, reading the communiques between the British politicians were talking about him, saying, "Oh, he's an ambitious, he hasn't got no charisma and nothing. He's just an ambitious little somebody." You know what I mean? Like, although you can't trust what they say either. You know what I mean? The dirty Babylon-minded people. You know what I mean? Against black man again. You know what I mean? So, but nevertheless, this is what they did say about him, that he was not of a good character, he wasn't a strong character, and he would have done anything to get hold of himself, to get himself the arms, to be able to arm himself and become the King of Kings. And even Menelik said to an Italian, I think you'll find that in Marcus, the history of Menelik II, 1844 to 1913, I think that's the title of the book, Menelik II by Marcus.
Harold G. Marcus.
Harold G. Marcus, yeah.
Formative years.
Not
the formative years of Menelik.
Yes. But he says in there that Menelik supposedly said to a Italian somebody, I don't know, diplomat, about Johannes, being given his crown, like Johannes taking his crown as the King of Kings, like he actually mentions it in that book, that was his opinion on, that his crown was stolen from him, really. It was his rightful crown, which Johannes had taken over, through force of arms. So it was the same, it was the culmination of the Zamana Massacre, really, because Tewodros II brought it to an end, but then still incorporated the Hulitlidet doctrine, you see. And then so Johannes IV came and then come on with the Hulitlidet doctrine, and then obviously then Menelik came to the throne. Empress Soditu came to the throne with Rastafari, the Prince of Peace, as the Soslidet doctrine adherent. They come from because the Soslidet doctrine also comes from Deborah Libanos monastery. That was founded in the 13th century by Tekla Imanov. So that is Saint Tekla Imanov of the 13th century. Late 1200, 13th century, late 1200s, going into the 14th century, the early 1400s. That's when they that's when they re-established the Solomonic kingdom. But then don't forget, as I said, 1426 now. What's his name came in? Zara Yaakov You know, Zara Yaakov came into power. So and this will bring us to a point. I must bring this in, family, because I must bring in this information about when his Majesty. Oh, right, the Ethiopian. Oh, I just want to read. I've got the Constitution up here, and it says Article 3 of the, just for clarity, Article 3 of the Constitution. It says the law determines that the imperial dignity, that is, you know, the kingly power of His Majesty, the imperial dignity, shall remain perpetually attached to the line of Haile Selassie, His Majesty Haile Selassie I, descendant of King Seifa Sellassie, whose line descends without interruption from the dynasty of Menes I, son of King Solomon of Jerusalem and the Queen of Ethiopia, known as the Queen of Sheba. So that is Article 3, written into law. And the point I make that is where I said about it earlier, that you know, His Majesty has put his Seifa Sellassie in law, the Soslidet doctrine in law of Ethiopia. You know, so then, and then if we go back to now, if we come back to the crown, because like I say, we must be very respectful to His Majesty's position as the head of the Ethiopian Church. We can't come saying, oh, we're fighting against His Majesty, we're fighting against the church. We can't do that. You know, that's impossible. But I will just go to the Constitution. When His Majesty was crowned on his coronation day, right? He actually he actually said that he would maintain the faith of the Ethiopian church, right? When he took the sword of office, you know, when he took his sword, the scythe, by the way, the sword is the scythe. Right, then handling this is from the liturgy of the Ethiopian when His Majesty's coronation. It is very important that I put this information out here. He said, then handling the sword to the King of Kings, he shall speak the following words: through this sword, judge with truth. Through it, this is the important part. Through it, keep custody of the Orthodox Church of the Lord Exarchate. Through it, assist those women whose children and husbands passed away, and those youths whose fathers and mothers passed away. Now listen to this part here. Through it, restore what is corrupted and establish what is restored. You see what I'm saying? Through the sword, restore what is corrupted, which is the Orthodox Church, and establish what is restored. So did His Majesty do anything to establish, you know, to remove, to restore what is corrupted? Yes, He did. He made the Ethiopian Orthodox Church autocephalous in 1959. That was when the final signature was put on in Egypt. His Majesty went there in 1959, but in 1955, which was his Silver Jubilee year, His Majesty gave to the Ethiopian Church, a mascot. And that mascot, I can't show it to you. If I was on my computer, I would show it to you. I don't know if I can just show you my one. You see this mascot here? You see it?
Positive.
This is the Star of Ethiopia. This is the Victory Star of Ethiopia. And His Majesty gave this mascot to the church in 1955. And when he gave it to the church, the Abuna gave a message. The Abuna gave a message. Let me just get this across the picture. The Abuna gave this speech to His Majesty the day that they received the mascot, and I'm going to read the whole thing. This is in 1948 of the Ethiopian calendar, which is
Well,
19...
depending on how lengthy it is, we have to make that one the ceiling comment then.
Yeah, well, it's only a short thing, but it's very important.
It's very
yeah. Why it's important? Why I say it's so important is because, like I read in the Constitution, that His Majesty,
of course,
would not go. He made the oath to uphold the faith of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, right? So now this is the Abuna of the church in 1948, Abuna Basilius. And he says, Your Majesty, today, when the greatness of the Ethiopian church has been preserved by the efforts of Your Majesty, in the name of the Ethiopian church, my colleagues here present, and on my own behalf, my colleagues here present, and on my own behalf, I shall begin my speech with these words. Thou lovest righteousness and hatest wickedness. Therefore, God thy God have anointed thee. Well, that is from Psalm 45, verse 7. You see, don't forget in His Majesty's coronation, the Psalm 45 was used, and then then there's the daughter, then they use that also to anoint Empress Menen. Yes, the daughter. So you can see now we're now talking about the Abuna, talking God business to His Majesty, right? Now listen to this. Looking back on the history of Your Majesty's ancestors, we agree that it is only during your reign that today we have secured both spiritual and temporal well-being. Only in His Majesty's reign, looking back at His ancestors. Well, when we're looking back at His ancestors, why I wanted to say that is because when we go back to Zara Yacob in 1426 to 1462, who built the national movement against the Coptic Church, he brought in the Saturday Sabbath, the Saturday and Sunday Sabbath. He made it an official national movement against the domination of the Coptic Church of Egypt, even though they're maintaining the link. There was a movement against it, what was called the Ewastatiwos. The Ewastatiwos. Keeping Saturday and Sunday Sabbath, the same day as we have to bring that forward to the Christmas Gena. Emmanuel Gena and Bale Gena. The same concept. So this is, so we've got history to do these things. We have the power to do to make these suggestions true. We're watching His Majesty's work here. That's why I'm saying we must keep to very much not to disrespect the Ethiopian church, not to disrespect His Majesty in any way, because I'm an Orthodox follower, and I'm a deacon in the church also. I've actually been anointed as a deacon in the church. And for that reason, I don't ever want to disrespect the church, but I'm not going to stand up there and lie with them. Simple as that. So looking back on the history of Your Majesty's ancestors, who is Zara Yacob, 1426, we agree that it is only during your reign and that today we have secured both spiritual and temporal well-being. Thus, your people, benefiting from both aspects of life, is seen moving forward progressively to the future under your leadership. As it is said in the scriptures, in your patience possess ye your souls. I think that is in Luke. I think that comes from. Your Majesty, armed with patience and faith, has exerted yourself unceasingly to gain the rights of the Ethiopian church without interrupting the old friendly, fraternal, and spiritual relations which have always existed between the two churches, which is the Coptic Church of Alexandria. You see? So he's saying now, Your Majesty has delicately drawn the church from under there without causing any disruption. You see, His Majesty, because he swore to uphold the church, but then he is able to His Majesty has changed the law. What is the law? The law was that no Ethiopian could be a bishop.
High priest, the bishop,
They could only be underlings. So there was there is a imbalance. There's, an anti-ma'at, when we call it an imbalance. Ma'at is the balance, is anti-ma'at, So this is so important. This document here is the key for Rastafari to understand these things. So he says, he says, so His Majesty delicately, it took him 30 years. How long did Christ live on the earth before him come and get baptized? In 30 years. Right? And now we've got His Majesty freeing up the church in 30 years because they got the first bishops in Ethiopia in 1929. 30 years later, exactly, His Majesty signed off the document for the freedom, even though on the 25th year, on the 26th year, even though he donated this mass cult to the church. They've hidden this. This is a hidden knowledge. They don't tell you about this. He gave this, well, you're going to, as I read it on, you'll see. So he says, So he says, without interrupting the old friendly, fraternal and spiritual relations that have always existed between the two churches, for which rights your people rejoice today. And this is a clear confirmation of what your Majesty has once said. Perseverance in hope, supported by faith, is a powerful arm for the final victory. Your father, King David, had wished to erect the temple, but that happiness was accorded to his son Solomon. It became your Majesty's good fortune to see that the Ethiopian church, which has been on an unstable foundation for 1600 years, this is from the Council of Nicaea, has become a recognized religious body with full rights and respect in your reign. The servants of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and the old people, happy for this memorable event, can acclaim their happiness and say, listen to this, in wisdom thou hast made them all. Today, the church is in its full joy. Your Majesty has handed a great spiritual light to the Ethiopian church and its followers. And it is on us, the servants of the church and the people, that fall the care and responsibility of guarding always the light. Because His Majesty is the light. He's a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. I report with great pleasure to your Majesty the hearty reception accorded to us by our co-religionists, and particularly the fatherly and sympathetic expression extended by His Holiness Abuna Yusuf during our stay in Cairo. That's when they'd been there to be ordained as the Abuna. We pray God also, may God preserve with His blessing, your Majesty, Her Majesty and their imperial family, and the freedom and prosperity of the Ethiopian people. Now listen to this. We pray God also that He will make us worthy of the high spiritual functions which we assume, thanks to your Majesty's efforts, that He may make these crosses which we have received from your Majesty, crosses which are the symbols of the union and church and state, these crosses of victory in our spiritual struggle. May He give us His grace in the accomplishment of His divine orders to end that we may serve our united church and pray for the welfare of our people. You see, so this is the fullness of Rastafari, this victory.
And that's Abuna, to be clear, that's Abuna Basilius.
Basilios, yes, sir. Yes,
officially the first.
The first Abuna of the Ethiopian, yes, the first Abuna. And that is what he said. So, so when I've shown you why it's so delicate that I come forward without trying to diss the church, because what this is, we have to present is truth to the church.
And that speech should be read more often, even amongst and even in the Orthodox Church as well. But my Lord, we have to seal up here,
Yes, sir. We'll give thanks, beloved.
Even all that rich nutrients there, I'm telling you. Yeah, just give us a sealing word, of course.
Yes, family. Well, I would just like to seal this session with a prayer to one of our Nyabingi priests, who's been always the priest at Fairfield House, Ras Bandeli.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Ras Bandeli. He's sick, you know, Bridget.
Oh, man.
He's very sick. So you know, we just send love and light and power and everything through the Rastafari family, through Kedus Rufael, the church where we opened for His Majesty and His Majesty's mother and father and brother in Harar last year, where we send the power of the healing of Rufael to our brethren. May his life and soul, in whichever way is to forward, hopefully in a cure for his sickness, that he can come forward. But however it is, we send him love and light to Kadamawi Haile Selassie. And to the old Rastafari family who are listening, I give thanks for His Majesty and Empress Menen and all of the Rastafari family. And I'm glad to have been able to spread this knowledge amongst with I and I as a family, Rastafari.
I'll give thanks, you know, as they say. I'll strength to even Rasban Daily, man. Being the elder that has for sure made his mark. And yeah, well, as I say, it's, you know, job will be done. That's all. We don't,
yes, sir.
We all understand the cycle of life still, but still, sometimes we have more time than we think. So as we pray for a speedy recovery.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Give thanks. Yes, sir.
So yes, my king, give thanks. You know,
yeah, man, honor and respect. We love you.
Give thanks for the strength. This is a powerful sit down, and you know, I know we're gonna meet again in the round table.
Yes, sir. Give thanks.
Family, hey, listen, I tell you, give thanks for Seifa Sellassie giving us such mighty strength. I don't think there's anyone that can deny, you know, the knowledge and the information that we just received. You know what I mean? And of course, those who are listening, what did you think about that information? Just give me a word. What vibration? How do you now look at Johannes IV going forward? And I must say, even that last speech that the brother read there, that was definitely, I mean, straight to the point. As I said, even when he read it, that is a speech that should be read even more in the churches, etc. I'm talking about even the Orthodox churches. I'm talking about that by Abuna Basolis as the first Ethiopian Abuna, and of course the praises that he gave to Haile Selassie as it related to such. Yeah, man, give thanks, Rastafari live continually.
Have you heard of ARCHAEOASTRONOMY? I am the Honorable Priest Isaac, and I am certified in the field of ARCHAEOASTRONOMY. Do you want to learn ARCHAEOASTRONOMY? Well, book your ticket today and join me in the Caribbean in the island of Antigua for 9 days and nights, 7 of which will be in the classroom studying and in the field researching on Green Castle Hill, Mount Anu, the Stonehenge of the Caribbean. This is a studycation. You will visit the beach, experience the Rastafari camps, yoga, vegan food, and much more. For more information, visit priestisaacinstitute.com or email us at priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com. Prosperity is a herbal remedy that has been naturally designed to nourish the prostate gland. Prosperity uses a combination of leaves, roots, and barks to create a tincture designed to nourish your prostate gland. It also will assist in prostate-related issues such as erectile dysfunction, swollen prostates, and problems related to the passage of urine. Call or WhatsApp 728-8289, 728-8289 and get your bottle today. Prosperity.